be heavy. But here we're here together for a reason, which is that we don't have to carry that weight alone. And that from a government standpoint, we want to do everything we can to make sure that we are preventing suicide whenever possible and supporting those who may be left behind or who may be survivors. But I also want to just underscore what Ashley and Shelby and Alla will help us do, which is to recognize that there's great power in sharing our own stories with one another, that we can be sources of strength for each other. And so I want to start this conversation actually by asking each of you to just reflect on the experiences perhaps in your own life that inspired you to join us today. And anything that you're open to sharing, I know that everyone here would love to hear. So Ashley, let me start with you.
Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon.
This is my buddy.
Yeah. We are old buddies, yes.
We've had the opportunity to spend some time together, and it's always good to be in fellowship with the Surgeon General. And it's so nice to meet Alo and Shelby, and thank you all for being here. I've learned in recovery that I can pretend to care, but I can't pretend to show up. And I'm here because I am my beloved mother's daughter. And on the day she died, which will be the 2-year anniversary in 1 week, the disease of mental illness was lying to her, and with great terror convinced her that it would never get better. But before I talk more about that, I have a firm belief that we deserve to be remembered, not just for how we died, but how we lived. So I want to just say a few words about Naomi Judd. She was born in Appalachia in eastern Kentucky in 1946, the eldest of 4, and the daughter of a working-class man who had an Ashland Oil fill-in station. Her mom was a clever, red-headed homemaker who loved that British comedy, those wacky ones. She loved them. And when she was small, she was in a school play, and when the play was over, the curtain came down behind her, and she kept performing to the delight of the parents, and that's when she discovered she really enjoyed holding an audience's attention. She was a survivor of childhood and adult male sexual violence. She became a nurse. She sometimes relied on public assistance. She was the friend of many Nobel Prize winners, and she wrote a song for Dr. Francis Collins called The Big Bang Boogie. She won several Grammys, and she left country music better than she found it. She also lived most of her life with an untreated and undiagnosed mental illness that lied to her and stole from her, and it stole from our family, and she deserved better. I'm also here because I was molested by a man for the first time that I remember when I was 7 years old, and that's when I had onset of childhood depression. And I know the feeling of not wanting to be here, but I had a different experience because I went to treatment in 2006 for unresolved childhood grief and sexual trauma. And I've been in good recovery for 18 years, and I've had a different outcome than my mother. And I carry a message of hope and recovery.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ashley. Shelby, can I come to you?
Yes. Chotma sahochafoet Shelby. Chikasha nompa sahochafoet shlakont fi. Chikasha saya. Hello, my name is Shelby. I am Chickasaw. When I turned 50, some folks in my community that I dearly love gifted me with my Chickasaw name. My Chickasaw name, shlakont fi, means the one who survived. And with that, I am happy. I could think of no better way to introduce myself to you all today than say, hi, I'm Shelby. I am the one who survived. I am a mother. I am an artist. I am a storyteller. And I'm also a suicide prevention professional and advocate. And I was so honored to have the opportunity to lead our team of professionals. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And really helping to craft this national strategy and to help bring the voice of lived experience, the voice of equity to every sentence of this document. So that, to be my proud lead, which never would have happened had I not survived. I have PTSD. I also am a survivor of child sexual abuse, survivor of domestic violence, and carry a lot of trauma. And in 2010, that trauma almost took my life because I was in a downward spin and didn't think I would ever come back up out of it. Fortunately, I did. And when I can't live that way anymore, but maybe I can live another way, and any other way looked better than death. So started a new path, staying in suicide prevention, where I had been. And people said, don't tell anyone that you're a suicide attempt survivor, it'll hurt your career. And I'm not really good at listening to people, and I have a big mouth, so I went ahead and started telling people. Once I was okay with it myself, I was okay telling people. And it did not hurt my career. If anything else, people watching going, oh, I could never tell anyone I'm a suicide attempt survivor, it'll hurt my career. I'm here on the stage, gainfully employed, and still a respected leader in the field. So I encourage any of you, open up and be honest when you bring your authentic self to your work and your passion. It makes everything better.
I just want to say, before Alo, you go, that that term gainfully employed is such an understatement in terms of what you have contributed and the impact that you've made, Shelby. So I'm so glad you spoke up, and we're all grateful for your contributions. Thank you. Alo?
Yeah, thank you, Shelby, for sharing, and Ashley as well. And thank you for having me. I am here because I believe in the tremendous power of music to amplify these important messages. I'm a follower, a disciple of the late, great Harry Belafonte, who was an amazing artist who used his voice for the power of good, in many ways transformed this country in lots of ways that were really unnoticed. And because of that, I show up and stand with the folks that I have been close to, who have inflicted self-harm and fortunately survived, but also the folks who I've been close to, collaborators that I've worked with, who have inflicted self-harm and succumbed to their the harm. And I really believe that it's important for all of us to recognize the power that we have. And so, in knowing someone who may be going through a traumatic time and just being a stand for them could make the big difference. And I want to encourage all of us here today and all of us watching to recognize the role that we can play, the positive role we can play in someone else's life. It's not always easy to know what's going on, but I truly believe that community is the answer, and the more that we can be in community and communication, the more we can recognize and see and offer our friends and our family members that moment to say, you know what, I need you. I need your help. And you know, it makes me think about those moments where you get the phone call and a friend of yours has committed self-harm, and you think, when was the last time I called? When was the last time I texted? Who else was around? And I think that there are cultural practices that we may have lost, that we can reintroduce, along with this platform and plan that we're presenting today, that can help us all get back to a place where we're really in community and in connection and in conversation, so that we can always be there and know who needs help.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alo. What you said made me think of the word regret. You mentioned when you hear that something's happened to someone you love, and you think, when was the last time I called them? Did I pick up when they called me? Has it been a while since I've gotten back to them? These are all the questions that go through our head, and certainly for me as well. I know all of us have busy jobs and busy lives, but one of the things that you said, Alo, that I want to underscore is that sometimes touching someone else's life and making them feel like they're not alone and they're supported doesn't have to take a lot of time. Sometimes we transact that feeling, sometimes we convey and deliver that love with just a moment or two on the phone where we're calling someone and checking in on them. One thing I'd like to ask each of you to do is just for a moment, think about somebody in your life who might be struggling right now, somebody who might be having a hard time, maybe they're feeling alone. Somebody could use a little bit of support. And just raise your hand when you've got somebody in your head that you're thinking about. Okay, nearly all of us. If each of us walked out of this room today with a commitment just to reach out to that person at some point today, maybe it's a text checking in on them, maybe it's a quick phone call to say, hey, I was just thinking of you and wanted to know how you're doing. Maybe it's swinging by to see them in person if they're close to us. You never know when that can make all the difference in the world. There's this asymmetry that science tells us about, the asymmetry between the impact we perceive we have on people and the impact we actually have. We dramatically underestimate how much our presence, our caring about somebody, or just noticing them, how much of a difference that makes in their life. So don't anyone tell you that you're not a healer because you don't have an RN or an MD or a DO after your name. We all have the capacity and the power to help each other heal, and that's what we have to do now more than ever. Alan,
may I make one comment just to double click on what you said? If you do choose to take his advice and reach out to a friend, I would encourage you, one, to offer a moment of joy in that reach out. Hey, I was just thinking about that one time we did this and we laughed and laughed. Because what you're offering them is a positive memory. And if you don't have that, I'm an advocate for music, so offer a song that's going to bring them joy. Just a thought, just a thought. Thank you, Dr. Murray.
And may I suggest some songs by an artist that I happen to know? Alo, so I'm a huge fan of Alo's music, and we actually had, on the note of joy, we had a concert that we organized from the Office of the Surgeon General last year in conjunction with the Kennedy Center. It was called our Songs for Hope concert, and it was based on the belief that the arts and music in particular can help us heal. And Alo was one of our key performers, and not only did he bring joy to the audience in such a profound way, but now whenever I take my kids to school in the mornings, they ask for Alo's song, so we play it every day on the way to school. And it has brought joy to our whole family, so thank you, and just another endorsement for the power of music. Ashley, speaking of things that we have done together, you and I had the chance to do a podcast together, and it wasn't just me and you. You graciously agreed to come on to our podcast, which is called House Calls, but you also brought 3 wonderful friends with you, your chosen family, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the power of your chosen family in helping you after the painful loss of your mother.
I would love to, and Maria Shriver said, what is a chosen family and how do you get one? So chosen family is, so how do you get one? I met Laura at Zumba at the Y. I met Heather at a mutual friend's funeral over prayer, and I met the others in 12-step recovery. And we are so tightly knit and bonded that they became Mom's chosen family, and everyone called her Mama. We celebrate the holidays together. We vacation in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. We went to see U2 at the Sphere. And the day that Mom died, I sent one text to the group and said, emergency, Williamson County Hospital. And in the time it took them to drop everything and drive to the hospital, they were there. And they walked beside me through that entire experience. And, I just gave them a code word, which they used at the emergency room entrance, and they were just with me the entire time. They coordinated everything, the dishwasher, getting the covers off the patio furniture, and they brought Mom so much joy and pleasure in her later years. Even when she could only come over and lay on the sofa, they were around her. And, you know, for my birthday last Friday, we had a Zoom. Pop was with them in Nashville yesterday for another one's birthday, and Logan's parents, she's doing elder care. It's Pop's role to be proud of Logan. She was just accepted out of 250 applicants, only 25, to become a mental health counselor because of Mom. You know, and he's her Pop too, and it's his role to be proud of her. So that's my chosen family.
And I think it's so powerful you share that, because a lot of us may not have birth family around us, but we can build these relationships, and we can be that family for other people too. If I could do one thing in terms of nudging our culture, you know, in a slightly different direction, it would be to nudge people to lean forward, lean into other people's lives as opposed to leaning back. I think we often are very thoughtful in wanting to respect people's privacy, but sometimes that well-intended instinct prevents us from inquiring about how people are doing or reaching in when they're struggling, and we think, oh, let's just let them be. They'll ask for help when they need it. But any of us who have been through pain know that we aren't always able to ask for help when we need it. Sometimes we need people to come into our lives and to offer that help. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's and the intimacy can be so exquisitely poignant. Like, as I mentioned, Logan's doing elder care, and we were all hiking in the Smokies together, and we sat down and said, Logan, what will you need for us when your dad dies? So we can be thinking about how we need to show up for you.
Yeah, those are the kind of conversations we ideally want to have with our family, but sometimes we hesitate to. Shelby and Alo, I was wondering, in the few minutes that we have remaining, I would love for both of you to speak to what people around us can actually do to help support us, to support others who may be struggling with thoughts of suicide. Sometimes that can be scary for other people when they realize somebody is considering harming themselves or taking their own life. They don't know what to do. But maybe, Shelby, we can start with you. You helped inform so much of the National Strategy on Suicide Prevention that we released today. What advice would you have for people on how they can show up for people who, in their lives, who may be struggling?
So I would say, don't worry about, you know, if you're saying the right thing, just say something and show up and share your presence. If a simple sentence could fix their problems, it would have already fixed it. And it's okay to sit and go, you know, this really sucks. I can't fix it, but I'm here for you. What do you need? You know, and then maybe they just need you to sit there. Maybe they need you to do laundry, unload the dishwasher, whatever it is. So I would say, you know, treat them the same you would treat someone who has a life-threatening terminal health condition. Because mental health, brain conditions are terminal, life-threatening health conditions as well if they do not get treated and managed. So to show up, have patience, because sometimes I think the hard thing is when you're struggling and people have showed up for you, and there's an expectation that you need to get better right away to reward them for showing up for you. And I would say have patience and let them be however they need to be. That will really make a difference and help them recover.
Thank you, Shelby. And Alo, as you just think about it from your perspective as somebody who suffered loss, you know, of somebody you cared deeply about, what did people do for you as somebody who was, in a sense, a survivor who was left behind? What did people do for you that was helpful at that time, or what do you wish they had done?
You know, I have a very unique lens and experience. My collaborator and friend, Tim Bergling, took his life. And the outpouring of love that came from our community of fans was really helpful in helping me get through his passing. The family and friends within our circle were also very, very helpful and supportive. Not everybody has that kind of support. And so, of course, I've got a unique experience. But to answer your earlier question of how can people show up, when a close friend of the family attempted to take their life, we then thought about how can we create a system of check-ins from everyone, this constellation of support to insulate this loved and dear friend, so that we know that somebody within the network is always checking in. And so it's an idea that I feel like may be hard to duplicate always, because people are busy, and again, there's this fear of, am I checking in too much? Am I bothering this person who is going through this time? And ultimately, I think, as Shelby said, don't worry if you're saying the wrong thing. I think what it comes down to is reaching out and making that connection. And I don't think there's some such thing as too much love. Let's give as much as we can.
That's all.
That's right. That's right.
Anything else you want?
I concur. I just say that I'm so grateful and so thankful, and there are people out there that if we could just somehow get the message that they may qualify for pardons, what the process is and everything, that would also be beneficial. It's my main thing.
In 2014, President Barack Obama, he was the first president to ever go to a prison. And he actually went to the federal prison that I was in El Reno, Oklahoma. I was gone already, right? And it's so weird. I said, I never want to go back to prison, but that day, I was like, oh my God.
Don't say it.
I never in my life want to go back to prison, but if I could, I would love to be back in prison that day just to thank him and shake his hand. But I say all that to say this. When he was there, he had said that just through circumstances, different environments, that he could easily be one of those individuals that was behind that wall. And I would like for you to know that there's some amazing individuals behind that wall. They're here at this table right now, some of them. People who could have been doctors, attorneys, mentors, people who could even been vice president or president. And some of those people are still behind the wall. And when a commutation or pardon is granted or not granted, you not only deny that person, you deny their family. Receiving my commutation and my pardon, it breathed life not only into me, but into my mother, to my father, and also into my community. And when I think about where all the mentors are at, they're incarcerated. And we just need our people to come back home. Our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers. But there's some amazing people that are in there, and hopefully they don't get left behind.
Thank you.
Well, I just second what he said. This is a great group of, as Jesse would say, the class of 2024. Just the process, understanding the process, and just trying to make the process, like I waited 8-9 years, and every day or every other month I would go on the website and it says pending. Okay, pending. And for all those years, I still didn't give up, but somebody may give up. So just making the process shorter or communicating with them, because I could have easily just gave up, but giving up is too easy.
That's right.
So, but I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and everybody in this room, I appreciate you guys. And this is my brothers and sisters now, because we all have a similar story. We've all walked a path that we're not proud of, but today we walk out with new light and giving somebody else hope. So thank you, Jesse, Beverly, Jason, Madam President, Vice President, thank you, Ms. Kim, thank you, and you're gonna hear our names again in positive light.
Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kardashian, you want to give some closing thoughts, observations?
Sure. Every time I've gone and visited a prison, I've met some of the smartest individuals with the brightest ideas, and to see the changes that are happening to make their re-entry easier, I think is going to be life-changing and give so many people hope, especially with the small business loans, and having the opportunity for this to make those ideas that they have inside come out and realize those dreams. I used to think, well, the goal is just to get out, right? And then everything's all good, and then everything is just perfect. In my head, I was so naive to think that that's all that was needed. And then as you get out and you realize, oh, there's hurdle and obstacle and hurdle and obstacle every step of the way, and to just know that there are people that are dedicated and committed to changing that and to helping people really start their businesses, create a real life for themselves, is just inspiring, and what pushes me to want to continue to do the work that I do. So I'm learning every step of the way of what needs to be done, and I think a super important part of it is just telling your stories so that people that are in the position to help can open up their hearts and learn along the way with us of what needs to be done. Because if you haven't been in the system and you aren't really aware of those challenges, you can still do your part on amplifying those ideas. So together with your stories is just what's necessary to really help. And obviously with all the change that is going on and all of the attention to the second chances is just so beautiful to see. So thank you, and thank everyone here for just being so open and vulnerable.
Thank you. And I'd say this, I'm a public finance attorney. I'm an infrastructure lawyer by training. So I love data and I love numbers. But when you take opportunities to humanize data and actually tell real stories, connecting the head and the heart, and I just want to thank you, Madam Vice President. I mean, every opportunity you have to use your platform to show real letters of opportunity to really illuminate human dignity through Second Chance work and everything else you do. We didn't have to do this. We could have mailed or emailed people or wait for people to check the website. Check the website again. But you use your platform in ways that make us all better. So thank you for convening us. And some final words to these heroes.
Again, thank you, Kim. You brought up some really important points that I'd like to emphasize, with the forefront and backdrop being these 4 extraordinary leaders. In our country, we don't lack for people who want to do good, who care about their families, who want to help and support their community, who want to help those in need. But sadly, especially when we're talking about people who have been in the criminal justice system, we still have so many aspects of the system that create obstacles and barriers to people being able to fulfill that dream, that desire, that will. And so part of the work that we are doing in our administration is to identify what are the specific things in the way the system is currently designed that just put in place obstacles that needn't be there if we want to invest in the people of our country. And we're doing it both in terms of people who've been in the system and people who haven't been in the system. It's about access to opportunity as much as anything. And the 4 of you have demonstrated what happens when, through sheer will and then with support, you have that ability. Each of you has given so much to your families, to your community, and by your stories, and today in particular, what you are doing to inspire people to understand what's possible, but also to understand they have a right to demand that we create and reinforce a system that actually works for people. and not against them. And so that's part of why we have done what we have done, for example, with the small business loans, what we are doing in terms of increasing Pell Grant opportunities. Again, understanding when people have, they've been held accountable, and they have been accountable, we have to help people earn their way back and invest in their capacity. And so again, I thank the four of you for showing what's possible and being an example of what we know is possible all over our country every day. But when we hold it up and recognize what we each can do to support that, I think we're going to be a better society, and many, many people will benefit. So again, thank you to the four leaders in particular.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for being a part of this conversation.